All right, let's jump straight into this completely mind-bending explainer of Kaspar Naret's brilliant sci-fi novel, The Complete Manual of Impossible Technologies. I'll tell you right now, this isn't your standard story. It's this incredibly surreal journey written entirely in the form of a 900-page patent application. We're talking a deep dive into the absolute absurdity of bureaucracy, recursive paradoxes, and the undeniable thrill of engineering the impossible. Today, we are going to break down exactly how you go about building a machine that shouldn't and theoretically cannot exist.
Think about it for a second. It really sets up the ultimate engineering problem we'll be untangling today. If you are commissioned to build a machine that flawlessly describes things that flat out do not exist, where do you even begin? I mean, what kind of components do you use to map out pure, undifferentiated absence? It's like trying to build a house out of thin air.
Section 1. The Impossible Commission. An envelope of brass polish and old thunder.
So our story kicks off with Engineer K. He's this highly methodical, no-nonsense guy. And one day, on a Tuesday that had actually technically been canceled, he receives this very unusual brown envelope. Inside is commission number Aleph Null from the mysteriously apocryphal Ministry of Apocryphal Affairs. His task? Build an apparatus for the systematic delineation of non-entities. Simple enough, right? Except there is a massive, universe-breaking catch to this assignment.
Here's the core rule, and it is a total mind-bender. The device absolutely cannot describe anything that exists or even could exist. So let's say K does some digging and realizes the very ministry commissioning him doesn't actually exist. Well, if his machine works perfectly, its very first output would have to prove its function by describing that same ministry. But if it successfully describes the ministry, that gives him a concrete identity, implying they do exist, which means the machine has just failed its primary directive. It's wild! K is instantly trapped in this inescapable recursive paradox loop. And the payment for taking on this nightmare of a project? 3 coins. But of course, they aren't normal coins. They're minted in a year that literally hasn't happened yet. They're meant to compensate him for success, for failure, or, get this, in the event that the whole project exists in a superposition of both states simultaneously. The coins literally draw heat from his own conviction that any of this is actually real.
Moving on to Section 2. Engineering non-existence. Translating the void into syntax.
Okay, so K realizes pretty quickly that you can't build an impossible machine from the ground up. You have to build it from the inside out. His first component is the probabilistic chronotope. Think of it as a surreal word selection mechanism. It's a rotating brass cylinder inscribed with every word in every single language, even the forgotten ones. 7 mechanical stylize strike it to select words, but it's not random. The timing of the strikes is driven by existential dread and the looming proximity of ontological collapse.
Now, words become sentences, sure, but the machine has to guarantee it never accidentally describes something real. Enter the ontological sieve. To filter out reality, it checks every generated sentence against this massive 7-foot-tall filing cabinet. It is quite literally a library of absence. It cross-references a master catalog of everything that doesn't exist, immediately tossing out any sentence that accidentally happens to be true out there in the real world. You might be wondering, how on earth do you power a contraption like this? Well, it uses tautological feedback. Describing non-existence naturally creates contradictions, and those contradictions generate raw energy. But to keep reality from just caving in on itself from all these accumulating impossible truths, he builds the Ouroboros exhaust. It captures the excess paradoxes and just vents them straight back into the void, perfectly harnessing the friction between being and non-being.
Which brings us to Section 3. The Ministry of Absence, 13th floor, 12-story building.
So Ka turns it on, the typewriter starts clacking away, and we finally get to see the sheer bureaucratic satire behind all this. But the output isn't a normal narrative. It spits out exactly 900 pages, forming a perfectly formatted, literal patent application that meticulously documents the ministry's entire organizational structure. It starts detailing an agency that literally occupies the administrative void left behind when 2 different government departments both assume a task is the other guy's job.
This ministry is absolutely wild. They have all these bizarre divisions. They manage everything from canceled Tuesdays, to unbuilt cities, to relationships that ended before they even began. My favorite is the subdepartment of recursive administration. They are the only department actually self-aware of their own non-existence. So they handle the mandatory government existence forms by just enthusiastically committing perjury.
But, it's not all just bureaucratic jokes. There is a surprisingly profound emotional weight to these files. The machine starts generating documents for the biographical void, typing out the life of Alexandra Chen, a girl who was never born simply because her father missed a flight. It even types out the safe, normal, happy life Engineer K himself chose not to live when he turned down a boring corporate job back in 2003. It's incredibly poignant. It's literally documenting the ghosts of human potential.
And then, things get really funny. As the machine keeps writing, the ministry actually starts filing complaints about the manuscript's accuracy. The machine notes that these non-existent bureaucrats are painfully aware they are being described. Like, the machine writes that their cafeteria food tastes reheated, and the ministry aggressively pushes back, demanding the official records state their food is institutionally adequate.
All right, Section 4, the paradox trap, the dangers of existing too much.
Here is the massive problem. K's machine is working too well. By perfectly describing the ministry in this massive patent, he's accidentally making them real. They're gaining a documented history and solid existence. And the ministry's mid-project inspectors, Margaret Chen and Dr. Sato, are in an absolute panic. Because for a slick, shadowy bureaucracy that operates in the gaps of reality, becoming fully real is their worst nightmare. It means answering to standard government regulations, facing the Federal Records Act, and justifying their budgets to congressional committees.
So they have to manage this existential threat fast. Dr. Sato checks the machine's ontological stress levels. She notes they are hovering safely at 47 kiloparadoxes per minute. And why is that specific number absolutely crucial? Because if it hits 73 kiloparadoxes, reality will literally collapse in a localized sphere. The machine is simply generating way too much reality for a non-existent entity to handle.
To stop this total collapse, K is forced to embed a brilliant failsafe directly into the patent application, the Heisenberg clause. It's genius. If you prove the ministry exists, poof, they instantly collapse into pure absence. If you prove they don't exist, they immediately materialize into a real government agency. This elegant little trap keeps the ministry locked in a permanent, highly productive quantum superposition, completely safe from congressional audits.
And that leads us to our final act. Section 5, choosing the impossible, the allure of the void.
It's been an utterly exhausting journey, but at 11:47 p.m., K finally finishes the 900th page of the patent. He's done it. And the best part, the Patent Office will inevitably, without a doubt, reject the application for being mathematically and logically impossible, which perfectly preserves the ministry's non-existent status. The machine did exactly what it was built to do.
With the job done, the faceless director of this bizarre agency finally visits the workshop, and get this, his face is actually a mirror, literally reflecting K's own potential back at him. He pays K, and then offers him a slate of increasingly surreal future projects. We're talking a clock that tells time in a non-existent time zone, a map that constantly updates with places you decided not to go, and an entire filing system for emotions you never expressed.
K looks at these offers and he realizes something profound. He knows he could have had that safe, normal corporate engineering job, but having tasted the sheer intoxication of the impossible, of literally building bridges across the void, he knows he can never ever go back to conventional reality. He just picks up his notebook to start designing the chronometer of unlived time. So I'll leave you with this to chew on. When faced with the absolute certainty of a mundane life, or the dangerous, mind-bending thrill of building the impossible, what choice would you make?